The mask you wear is suffocating you. You feel it, don't you? That subtle, gnawing discomfort, the sense that who you present to the world isn't truly who you are. This is the starting point for Beyond the Persona, Jung's path to radical authenticity. And today we're not just going to talk about it, we're going to dissect the very foundation of that inauthentic self you've so carefully constructed. Carl Jung, one of the titans of psychology, understood this profound human dilemma. He identified the persona, that social mask, that curated version of yourself, as both a necessary tool for navigating society and a potential prison for the soul. If you're here, it's because some part of you is tired of the performance, weary of the act. You crave something real, something unshakable. This isn't a gentle pat on the back. This is a call to arms for your own soul. We're embarking on Jung's path, a journey that demands brutal honesty, unwavering courage, and a willingness to confront the uncomfortable truths hidden beneath the polished surface. Get ready to strip away the facade, because radical authenticity isn't just a buzzword. It's the key to unlocking a power and a peace you've only dreamed of. First, let's drag this concept of the persona into the harsh light of day. What is it really? Jung described the persona as the face we present to the world. It's the collection of social roles, behaviors, and attitudes we adopt to be accepted, to fit in, to achieve certain goals. Think of it as your public relations manager carefully crafting an image. It's your work self, your social self, your family self. In itself, the persona isn't inherently evil. It's a functional interface. Without it, social interaction would be chaotic, even impossible. It allows us to navigate different contexts with a degree of predictability and efficiency. You wouldn't talk to your boss the same way you talk to your closest friend or your child, and the persona helps manage these distinctions. But here's the brutal truth. The first of many you'll face on this path. Your persona is not you. It is a fragment, a carefully selected and often heavily edited highlight reel. The danger, the insidious trap that snares so many is over-identification. It's when the mask becomes fused to the face, when you forget there's anything else underneath. We develop this persona from a young age. We learn what behaviors earn praise and acceptance, and which ones lead to punishment or ostracism. Our parents, teachers, peers, and society at large all contribute to shaping it. We learn to suppress aspects of ourselves that don't fit the approved mold, pushing them into the shadows, a concept we'll grapple with intensely later. The desire for acceptance, the fear of judgment, the raw, primal need to belong, these are the architects of the persona. The problem escalates when this constructed self becomes the only self we acknowledge or live through. When the persona is no longer a tool but a tyrant, dictating our every move, our every thought, our every feeling. You might be outwardly successful, the perfect employee, the ideal partner, the life of the party. Yet inwardly there's a hollow ache, a persistent feeling of being an imposter. This is the hallmark of persona dominance. You're living a script written by others for others. And the most brutal part, living solely through your persona, is a profound act of self-betrayal. It's a constant, low-grade rejection of your authentic core. So the first actionable step on this path of Beyond the Persona, Jung's path to radical authenticity, is radical self-inquiry. Start observing yourself with unflinching honesty. When do you feel most like you're performing? In what situations does the mask feel tightest, most constricting? What aspects of your true thoughts, feelings, or desires do you consistently hide or downplay for the sake of appearances or approval? Keep a journal, not of your achievements, but of these moments of inauthenticity. Note the discrepancy between your inner experience and your outer presentation. This isn't about self-flagellation, it's about gathering data, becoming aware of the patterns. Because you cannot dismantle what you do not first recognize. This initial confrontation with the pervasiveness of your persona is the necessary, uncomfortable first step towards genuine freedom. Now let's delve into the price of this persona, the often unseen cracks it creates in the facade of your life. Maintaining a false self is not a victimless crime. The primary victim is you. An overdeveloped or rigid persona, the one you cling to for dear life, exacts a heavy toll. It's a primary source of anxiety because you're constantly vigilant, terrified of the mask slipping, of being found out. It breeds depression because the true self, starved of expression and validation, withers in the darkness. It sabotages fulfillment because how can you find true joy when you're pursuing goals that align with your mask, not your soul? Consider your relationships. If people are drawn to your persona, they are connecting with an illusion. What happens when the real you inevitably peeks through? Disappointment, confusion, rejection. Authentic connection requires vulnerability, the willingness to be seen without the mask. But if your persona is all you offer, your relationships will remain superficial, transactional, leaving you feeling profoundly lonely even when surrounded by people. Think about the modern landscape. Social media, the ultimate persona crafting machine. We curate feeds of highlight reels, projecting images of perpetual happiness, success, and adventure. This isn't just individual, it's a collective reinforcement of persona-driven living, leading to widespread comparison, envy, and a pervasive sense of inadequacy. Corporate environments, too, often demand a specific persona: the aggressive go-getter, the compliant team player, the unflappable leader. We contort ourselves to fit these molds, often at the expense of our integrity and well-being. People-pleasing is another manifestation, where the persona is designed entirely around anticipating and meeting the needs and expectations of others, completely erasing one's own. Here's another brutal truth: the energy drain of maintaining a false self is colossal. It takes immense psychic effort to constantly monitor yourself, to suppress your natural inclinations, to perform according to a script. This energy could be channeled into creativity, growth, genuine connection, but instead it's consumed by the upkeep of an illusion. This internal conflict, this war between the true self struggling for air and the persona clamping down, is what Jung often identified as the root of neurosis. The symptoms, anxiety, panic attacks, unexplained fatigue, a general sense of unease, are often distress signals from the buried self, crying out for recognition. The cracks in the facade might start small, a fleeting moment of dissatisfaction, a questioning thought, but if ignored, they widen. The persona becomes more brittle, more desperate in its attempts to maintain control. You might double down, becoming even more rigid, more defensive, or you might experience a breakdown, a crisis where the mask shatters, leaving you feeling exposed and lost. This isn't a failure, it's often a breakthrough in disguise. It's an opportunity, albeit a painful one, to finally confront the illusion and begin the search for something more real. Understanding the profound cost of living through the persona is crucial. It's the leverage you need to find the courage for the difficult work ahead. The comfort of the familiar mask is seductive, but recognizing the slow poison it administers is the first step towards choosing the antidote of authenticity. This brings us to the call to authenticity, Jung's powerful imperative for wholeness. This isn't just about feeling a bit more yourself. In a Jungian context, beyond the persona, Jung's path to radical authenticity is about a profound reorientation of your entire being. Radical authenticity means courageously acknowledging, accepting, and integrating all parts of yourself: the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, and especially the parts you've hidden away in the shadow. It's about living in deep alignment with this integrated, true self, not with the curated image you project. Why is this path radical? because it fundamentally challenges societal norms and your own ingrained comfort zones. Society, in many ways, rewards conformity and the maintenance of a pleasing persona. It's easier to be liked when you're predictable, when you don't rock the boat, when you reflect back what others want to see. To choose authenticity is to choose a path less traveled, one that may invite misunderstanding, judgment, or even opposition from those invested in your old mask. It requires a different kind of courage, not the bravado of the battlefield, but the quiet, steadfast courage to be unpopular if it means being true to yourself. Jung's entire concept of individuation, arguably the cornerstone of his psychology, is essentially this journey towards authenticity. Individuation is the lifelong process of becoming an individual, meaning a separate, indivisible unity or whole. It's about differentiating oneself from the collective consciousness and the collective persona and developing one's unique potential. It's about becoming who you were truly meant to be, not who you were conditioned to be. This isn't a path of navel-gazing selfishness. A truly individuated person, secure in their authenticity, is far more capable of genuine contribution and connection than someone trapped in their persona. Here's a brutal truth that many self-help gurus gloss over. True authenticity isn't about suddenly being loved and adored by everyone because you're being real. In fact, your authentic self might make some people uncomfortable. It might challenge their own carefully constructed personas. The goal isn't universal likability. The goal is unshakable self-respect. It's about knowing deep in your bones that you are living in integrity, that your outer life reflects your inner truth. The validation that matters comes from within, not from the fickle applause of the crowd. The call to authenticity often arises from a place of deep dissatisfaction or crisis, as we discussed. It's that moment when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. It's the soul's yearning for expression, for truth. Jung believed this was a fundamental human drive. To ignore this call is to live a half-life, a muted existence. To answer it is to embark on the greatest adventure of all, the discovery and embodiment of your true self. This isn't about rejecting the persona entirely. Remember, it's a tool. The aim is to make it a conscious, flexible tool, one that serves the true self rather than a rigid cage that imprisons it. The journey demands that you loosen the persona's grip to see it for what it is and to begin the courageous exploration of what lies beyond. To truly move beyond the persona on Jung's path to radical authenticity, we must now confront the most challenging, yet most crucial element, the shadow. The shadow is the unseen key, the hidden vault containing much of what we need to become whole. According to Jung, the shadow is the dark side of our personality. It consists primarily of the primitive, negative, socially or religiously depreciated human emotions and impulses like lust, power strivings, greed, envy, anger, and so on. But it's more complex than just a repository for bad things. The shadow also contains undeveloped positive potentials, creativity, and instincts that were disallowed or shamed in our upbringing. Anything that doesn't fit the approved persona often gets relegated to the shadow. The persona and the shadow are inextricably linked. They are two sides of the same coin. The more dazzlingly perfect and one-sided the persona, the darker and more substantial the shadow it casts. If your persona is all about being kind, selfless, and agreeable, then assertiveness, healthy anger, and your own needs might be lurking in your shadow. If your persona is that of a tough, emotionless stoic, then vulnerability, tenderness, and a need for connection might be hidden there. Confronting the shadow is absolutely essential for moving beyond the persona because much of our authentic self, the parts we disown to construct our social mask, resides there. This is, without a doubt, the brutal part of the work. It requires looking at aspects of ourselves we find shameful, distasteful, or even frightening. Why is this confrontation so vital? Because an unacknowledged and unintegrated shadow doesn't just disappear. It festers. It exerts a powerful, unconscious influence on our behavior. The most common way an unowned shadow manifests is through projection. We see in others the very traits we deny in ourselves, and we judge them harshly for it. That person who infuriates you with their arrogance. Perhaps there's a touch of unacknowledged ambition or a desire for recognition in your own shadow. That person whose perceived laziness drives you mad. Maybe you're relentlessly driving yourself and have pushed your own need for rest and ease into the dark. Beyond projection, an unintegrated shadow can lead to self-sabotage, destructive behaviors, addictions, and inexplicable moods or outbursts. It's the monster in the basement. Ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It just makes it angrier and more likely to break down the door at the most inopportune moment. So how do we begin this daunting task of shadow work? A cornerstone of Beyond the Persona, Jung's path to radical authenticity. It starts with courageous self-observation and honesty. One powerful prompt is to pay close attention to what qualities in others trigger strong, disproportionate negative emotional reactions in you. These reactions are often signposts pointing directly to disowned aspects of your own shadow. Ask yourself, what behaviors in others do I judge most harshly? What am I most afraid of people seeing in me? Another area to explore is your dreams. Jung believed dreams are a direct line to the unconscious, and shadow figures often appear in them, offering clues. Journaling about these triggers and dreams can be incredibly revealing. Reflect on your slips of the tongue, your impulsive actions, the things you do that make you think, "That's not like me." Chances are it is like you. It's a part of your shadow making an appearance. A crucial point. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean becoming a bad person or acting out every dark impulse. It means becoming aware of these aspects, understanding their roots and their energy, and finding constructive ways to channel that energy. For example, repressed anger, when acknowledged and understood, can be transformed into the fuel for setting healthy boundaries or fighting for justice. Suppressed ambition, once owned, can drive positive achievement. The gold is often hidden in the dark. The shadow contains immense vitality, creativity, and authenticity. By daring to face it, we reclaim lost parts of ourselves, making us more whole, more human, and ultimately more authentic. This is not easy. It's uncomfortable. It requires humility and a willingness to see ourselves less than perfectly. But the alternative, remaining a slave to an unconscious, projected shadow and a brittle persona, is far more destructive in the long run. Having grappled with the persona and dared to confront the shadow, we arrive at the heart of Jung's path, integrating the self to forge your authentic core. This is where Beyond the Persona, Jung's path to radical authenticity, transitions from deconstruction to conscious creation. Integration is the process of bringing the disparate, often conflicting parts of your psyche, including the persona and the shadow, into a more cohesive and functional whole, centered around what Jung called the self-archetype. The self, in Jungian terms, represents wholeness, the totality of the psyche, and the striving towards individuation. It is the organizing principle that seeks balance and unity. The process of integration is not about eliminating the shadow or destroying the persona. It's about understanding and incorporating their energies and wisdom into a larger, more conscious framework. Your shadow, as we've seen, contains not just repressed negativity, but also untapped power, creativity, and raw vitality. By acknowledging these aspects, understanding their origins, often in childhood conditioning or trauma, and learning to accept them as part of your human experience, you diminish their unconscious control over you. You begin to see that even dark impulses often have a positive intention at their root, a desire for safety, for love, for power, for expression that has been distorted. Integration means finding healthier, more conscious ways to meet these underlying needs. Similarly, the persona doesn't need to be obliterated. Instead, it becomes a conscious tool, a flexible interface that you can adapt and use appropriately in different social contexts without it defining you. An integrated individual knows they are more than their job title, more than their social role. They can play these roles when necessary, but they don't lose themselves in them. The persona becomes transparent, allowing the light of the true self to shine through. So, what are the practical steps towards this integration? First, cultivate relentless mindfulness and self-observation without judgment. Become an impartial witness to your thoughts, feelings, and impulses. Notice when you're slipping into old persona patterns or when shadow aspects are being triggered. The key is non-judgmental awareness. Shaming yourself for having shadow traits only drives them deeper underground. Acceptance is the first step towards transformation. Second, journaling is an invaluable tool. Use it to explore inner conflicts, to dialogue with different parts of yourself. Imagine interviewing your persona or your shadow, to process difficult emotions and to track your insights. Write about your dreams, your projections, your moments of inauthenticity. Third, while discernment is key, seeking feedback from trusted, insightful individuals can sometimes be helpful. A good friend, a therapist, or a mentor who knows you well might be able to gently point out patterns or shadow projections that you're blind to. But always filter this feedback through your own inner wisdom. Fourth, embrace vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness. Authenticity requires the courage to be imperfect, to admit when you're wrong, to share your true feelings appropriately, of course. This is how genuine connection is forged. Fifth, actively work to develop the positive potentials that may have been relegated to your shadow. If you suppressed your creativity, take up an art class. If you denied your assertiveness, practice setting small boundaries. This is about reclaiming lost parts of your wholeness. Here's a brutal truth about integration. It is a lifelong process, not a destination or a quick fix. There will be moments of profound insight and liberation, but there will also be periods of confusion, resistance, and discomfort as old patterns fight to maintain their hold. The ego, which is often heavily identified with the persona, can be very resistant to this process of decentering. It fears losing control. This journey requires patience, persistence, and a deep commitment to your own growth. Forging your authentic core isn't about achieving some static state of perfection. It's about becoming more fully, more consciously, and more dynamically yourself, embracing the totality of who you are, light and shadow. This is the bedrock of radical authenticity. Finally, we arrive at the culmination of this journey, living authentically in a world that often still worships masks. This is where beyond the persona, Jung's path to radical authenticity translates into tangible lived experience, unleashing what can only be described as the unstoppable power of a true self. When you've done the hard work of understanding your persona, confronting your shadow, and integrating these aspects into a more cohesive whole, your way of being in the world fundamentally shifts. The benefits of radical authenticity are profound and far-reaching. Firstly, you experience deeper, more meaningful connections. When you present your genuine self, flaws and all, you give others permission to do the same. Relationships built on this foundation of truth are resilient, nourishing, and far more fulfilling than those based on superficial personas. Secondly, you cultivate unshakable self-respect and inner peace. Living in alignment with your core values and your true nature eliminates the constant internal conflict and energy drain of inauthenticity. You no longer need to seek external validation as desperately, because you have a solid sense of your own worth. Thirdly, you develop remarkable resilience to external criticism or praise. When you know who you are, the opinions of others, while you might consider them, no longer have the power to define you or devastate you. Your center of gravity is internal. Fourthly, clarity of purpose and direction emerges. When you strip away the shoulds and oughts imposed by your persona and societal conditioning, you connect with your innate talents, passions, and a deeper sense of what you're here to do. This authentic purpose becomes a powerful guiding force. Fifthly, your creativity and personal power are unleashed. The energy previously consumed by maintaining a false front and suppressing your shadow is now available for constructive, creative expression. Your actions become more congruent with your inner state, lending them a natural authority and impact. How does a truly authentic person navigate the world? They don't become recluses, nor do they blunder through social situations with no regard for context. They understand the utility of the persona, but they use it consciously and strategically, as a flexible interface, never allowing it to become a rigid prison again. They can adapt to social requirements without losing their inner sense of self. They know the difference between polite social engagement and baring their soul inappropriately. Their authenticity lies in their integrity, their consistency between their inner and outer worlds, even when adapting their surface behavior. This leads to the unstoppable aspect. When you are radically authentic, your energy is congruent. Your words, your actions, your very presence radiate a coherent and powerful signal. There's no internal dissonance, no leakage of energy into maintaining facades. This makes you incredibly magnetic and impactful. People are drawn to authenticity even if they can't quite name it. It feels real, trustworthy, and inspiring. Your influence stems not from manipulation or force, but from the simple, potent power of being genuinely yourself. However, there's one final brutal truth to contend with. Society and individuals within it who are deeply invested in their own personas might not always celebrate your authenticity. Your genuine self might challenge their illusions, their comfort zones, their unexamined lives. You might be misunderstood, criticized, or even ostracized by some. You must be prepared for this. Your commitment to authenticity must be stronger than your need for universal approval. This is the ultimate test of your resolve, but the reward, the profound freedom, the deep sense of rightness, the quiet power that comes from living your truth is immeasurable. It's the difference between existing as a carefully crafted puppet and living as a sovereign human being. So the journey beyond the persona, Jung's path to radical authenticity, is not for the faint of heart. It is a demanding, often uncomfortable, but ultimately liberating odyssey into the depths of your own being. It's about dismantling the illusions you've mistaken for yourself, confronting the darkness you've disowned, and integrating all of it to unearth the profound truth of who you are. Jung's wisdom illuminates this path, showing us that the painful symptoms of a life lived inauthentically are often the very catalysts for our deepest healing and growth. The discomfort you feel with your current mask is not a curse, it's a call. The path to radical authenticity is challenging, yes. It requires you to look at parts of yourself you'd rather ignore, to feel emotions you'd rather suppress, to make choices that might be unpopular. But it is, without a doubt, the most rewarding journey you will ever undertake. It's the journey home to yourself. Therefore, the call to action is clear and urgent. Commit to this brutal but necessary work of self-discovery, starting today, right now. Dare to question your persona. Who are you when no one is watching? What masks do you wear and why? Dare to look at your shadow. What do you project onto others? What parts of yourself have you disowned out of fear or shame? Embrace the discomfort that inevitably arises when you step outside the familiar confines of your constructed self. Choose authenticity over conformity, courage over comfort, truth over approval, every single day in small ways and large. This isn't about achieving a flawless, static state of being authentic. It's about committing to the ongoing, dynamic process of becoming more real, more whole, more you. Your true self, with all its power, its wisdom, and its unique brilliance, is waiting to be fully expressed. Stop hiding it, stop starving it, stop betraying it. The world doesn't need another polished persona. It needs your raw, unfiltered, radical authenticity. Unleash it. Become who you truly are. The power you will discover will not just change your life, it will be unstoppable.